On this channel, I've made videos using the Olympus E620, the D700, D200, D70-100, and the Canon 5D Classic. When I make videos about older DSLRs, I get such a passionate response from all of you in the audience, whether you bought them brand new at the time of release or you're just discovering them now. There is such an appreciation for these cameras. I also get so many recommendations in the comments about DSLRs that I should try out on the channel and review. So in today's video, I am going to run through the options, discuss them, and talk about which ones you are likely to see in my hands in the future and here on the channel. Some of the cameras I'm about to list, I might try and get on loan, and some of them I might buy. I'll obviously have to cull some of my other cameras to keep this obsession going. I am not trying to flex here with how much money I have to buy cameras. As we move through this list, please let me know which one you would like to see first here on the channel. And of course, let me know if there is something special that you think I have missed. I would love to know. All right, so first up, let's talk about the Nikon options. While I've been very Canon curious on the channel here lately, and that's something I want to talk about later on in the video, I am still all in and very interested mostly in Nikon models. First up, let's talk about some of the more consumer grade DSLRs that I am interested in trying. These are going to range from the D40 up to the D90. I find these get a lot of mention on my channel specifically for their color rendition. I've actually owned two D90s in the past, but I never really used them because the D70-100 just kind of blew them out of the water, so I ended up giving them away. I am keeping an eye out for one of the earlier CCD sensors though, and if I see one cheap or for a good price, I will definitely be grabbing it and trying it out. The D300 was a 12.3 megapixel crop sensor DSLR from 2007. This one interests me as a comparison to the D200 as it's basically the transition point between CCD and CMOS. It could be fun to shoot these side by side and see how the sensors compare. The D500 was Nikon's 20.9 megapixel flagship crop sensor camera released in 2017. I'm honestly not sure about this one. It's more of a sports and wildlife camera, both genres that I am not particularly trying out or necessarily interested in. The D500 is supposed to have very good autofocus and overall quite high performance, so I would be interested to see what that is like, having mostly only used fairly slow and archaic models. Moving on to the D610. Released in 2013, it had a 24 megapixel full frame sensor, an updated shutter, and improved white balance over the D600. A 24 megapixel full frame camera should really hold up even in 2025, so I'd be really interested to get my hands on it, try it, and compare it to some of my 12 megapixel favorites. The D600 supposedly had some quality issues, which led to the release of the 610. So for peace of mind, I think that that is the one I would purchase of the two. While retaining the same resolution as the D610, the D750 had a lot of processing and performance upgrades. It has been on my list as more of a tool I would probably use in my professional work. I do a lot of outdoors IRL style product photography of shoes and handbags, and I normally use my D70-100 for this as it has a very crisp and sharp look, and I suspect the D750 would do a similar job but with the added performance of a full frame sensor. This next camera really caught my attention when I was doing some research. The Nikon DF from 2013 looks so awesome. It more or less looks like a vintage Nikon SLR, but it has the 16 megapixel sensor from the D4 inside. I would absolutely love to get my hands on one of these, but they are pretty expensive, so it might be something that I have to loan from a camera collecting friend if you're watching. Apparently the DF didn't actually sell that well when it was released. I feel like this camera was ahead of its time, and the success of the newer ZF kind of shows that. There probably wasn't enough nostalgia for a film style body when the DF was released, but now I think the high price it carries on the used market shows that it has stood up, at least in terms of aesthetics and ergonomics. Moving on to the Nikon D3X. This was a 24 megapixel full frame pro spec camera from 2008. Okay, this is a camera that I don't think anyone has actually ever mentioned in the comments, but it is high on my list for one particular and a little bit controversial reason. I grew up in the Terry Richardson era where images were really embracing that direct flash look. That vibe was dominating. It was what I was seeing on Tumblr, in fashion magazines, and it just really influenced what I deemed to be a cool or good photo. There's a bit of a fallacy out there that he just simply used a Yashica T4 to get a lot of those photos that we know of celebrities that are so iconic, but it's definitely a little bit more complicated than that. In reality, he was actually using a Nikon D3X with a bracket that allowed him to get a speed light very close to the lens. This allowed him to get that high key look without too much angle on the drop shadow. Now that I think about it, this would also probably be such a good food photography setup. We have actually made a makeshift version of this with the D200, and I've been using it for some product photography. I'd love to recreate the original rig and use it for my own nostalgic reasons, as that era of photography really is part of my own aesthetic taste, regardless of the controversy around Richardson himself. Also, I'd be interested to know whether the D3X renders like a higher res version of the D3, D700, or if it has its own look. The D800 through to D850 hasn't really been on my radar because I think it's probably overkill for my needs, with up to 45 megapixels in the 850 being beyond what I could ever truly make use of. But if I can get my hands on one, I would love to give it a go. I'd probably take it up to the headlands and do some really nice, beautiful landscapes, which I have been trying a little bit more here on the channel. These landscape shots is where I do notice the lower res bodies start to really show their limitations in terms of cropping in. All right, so next up, we are going to talk about my Canon options. But before we do that, I want to check, are you a photographer who needs a website? If you are like me and you are looking for a professional and distraction-free way to showcase your beautiful personal or commercial photography, then Squarespace is the perfect place to do it. You can select from plenty of photography-specific templates all ready to go and have your website up and running in no time. Having a dedicated space online to showcase my photography, both commercially and personally, is one of the best things I've done as a photographer. I find this really helpful when pitching for work. I can send a link out to potential clients and they can see my body of work at a glance and get an idea of my style. The contact form has been so great and helps me to not miss any emails. It's super easy to update my website with the asset library that keeps all my content in one place. Squarespace isn't just for showing your photography though. I also sell presets and even have a portfolio review service all through my Squarespace website. I know so many of you dream of selling prints or zines, so Squarespace is the place to do it. It's got everything you need to set up an online store and take payments seamlessly. It really is a game changer for any creative existing online right now. So whether you're renewing your existing Squarespace website or you want to give them a try, you can head to www.squarespace.com/Lucy Lumen to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code Lucy Lumen. So Canon, the brand that some have said I am a fangirl of, which just really isn't true. People can get really weird in the comments section and accuse me of shilling for certain camera brands, which really doesn't make any sense because the majority of the cameras I cover on this channel aren't even in production anymore. If I'm ever paid to promote any brand or anything on this channel, I am legally required to disclose that, and of course I do. I also want to address that in my recent D700 vs 5DC video, I stated that I thought from personal experience that Canon has better build quality, and some people got really offended and even upset about that. So let me explain further. Every single Nikon camera I own pretty much has at least one issue with it. Whether it be something loose, not really working properly, peeling off, or just being straight up broken. On my Canon cameras so far, I have had a total of 0 issues. Nothing is sticky, nothing is loose, nothing is broken. So that is why I said that based on my own experience, but obviously it might be different for some of you watching. It could be completely opposite. I am just one small sample size of the greater photography population. I think though, in my defense, I would rather hear someone give their personal kind of lived experience with things rather than just parroting what everyone online says. Anyway, Now that's over, let's talk about Canon DSLRs. The Canon 5D Mark II was a 21 megapixel full frame camera released in 2008. When I compared the D700 to the 5D Classic, a lot of people commented saying I should have compared the D700 with the 5D Mark II. I do 100% plan to get my hands on one of these, but for a very specific and personal reason. One of my favorite indie movies, Frances Ha, was actually shot using a Canon 5D Mark II. It's actually so cool that they were able to do this, and when you do some research, there is a long list of Hollywood films that used the 5D Mark II, at least for certain shots, and it was a bit of a turning point in video technology where a camera that was within reach of regular people could generate high quality video, even if by today's standards the specs aren't that impressive. When using the Magic Lantern firmware add-on, many additional video and cinematography related controls and meters become available, such as false colors and zebra stripes for exposure control, depth of field estimates via peaking filters, audio VU meters, and disables the automatic gain control on the microphone input. While I don't have the time and resources to go out and shoot a feature film, I would still love to get my hands on this camera and go out and channel some Frances Ha vibes and shoot some black and white stills. Moving on to the Canon EOS 6D Mark I, which was a 20.2 megapixel full frame camera from 2012. This one has come up a lot in the comments whenever I've used the Canon 5D Mark I. I find the 5D, 6D models a little confusing in how they differ, so if anyone can help me out here, comment below. I'm definitely going to try out the Canon 5D Mark II for the reasons that I stated just before, but convince me on why I need to try the 6D. All right, so we got the big hitters, Nikon and Canon, out of the way. Let's move on to Olympus. Okay, so if you know me and you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I am a really big fan of Olympus film cameras. I love my Olympus OM10 and my Pen FT, but my experience shooting Olympus digital cameras is extremely limited. I mentioned the E620. I've shot that before and I am very fond of it, but that's pretty much it. As many of you may have already seen on Ali from 1 Month 2 Cameras channel, she has tried some incredible old 4/3 Olympus DSLRs, and in particular, I have always wanted to try the E300. From what I can tell, it's kind of the digital version of the Pen F with its quirky offset viewfinder and sideways mirror, but actually being a true SLR. It also has a Kodak sensor that is quite legendary, and ever since Ali's video, I have just wanted to try this camera. I only have a zoom lens in the 4/3 mount, and I'd love to also get my hands on the 25mm pancake lens as I think it suits that camera perfectly. I'm a big fan of the Spotmatic film cameras, and I absolutely love my 50mm 1.4 Takuma lens. It is so beautiful, but I am yet to ever have used a digital Pentax camera. This, I suspect, is to my detriment because I get a lot of people commenting suggesting that I try various models out. The K10D comes up often as a CCD option that is supposed to have great colors, so I'm keeping my eye out for one, but if there's any others that you guys recommend, let me know. Okay guys, so that's the big rundown of where I'm headed on my DSLR journey. I hope it's been fun to chat cameras, go through them, and maybe it's even given you some inspo. Maybe you're already scrolling on eBay or Marketplace right now. I know you are. In case you missed it, I did do a little vloggy road trip that shows off Australia really nicely with the Nikon D200. I am so in love with that camera. It's amazing. If you missed it, you can watch it here. This is exactly the kind of video I want to make for you guys. So if you enjoy it, like it, hype it, comment, all the things, and I will see you guys in the next one.